This time on The Spark, a children's author and a novelist. Both spend a significant part of their lives helping others discover their inner storyteller. That's next on The Spark.
The Spark is produced at Riverview Studios, an award-winning digital video production facility, creating programs to help clients motivate, educate, and inform their audiences.
Closed captioning provided by Ryan James Agency. Full service in digital advertising. Strategy and creative with gusto. Relentless about results. Find them at ryanjamesagency.com.
Jennifer Ann Hoh began her career as a children's author and illustrator as she continued her career as a first grade teacher. In fact, her book authoring was at first merely a means to an end, that end inspiring her students to write. The books are all about two real-life family members named Chewy and Petunia. Jennifer Hoh joins me now. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for being here. So, talk to me about your moment in your first grade classroom where you decided it was time that you were going to write something.
Well, I've always loved the literacy block of teaching, reading, writing, spelling, phonics. About 7 years ago, I was actually sent over the summer to a kind of a writing project at Rider University. It was called the National Writing Project. And during those 6 weeks over the summer, I spent a lot of time with other teachers and professors talking about how we could become better teachers of writing. And one of the objectives was to become better writers ourselves. So we spent a lot of time that summer journaling and writing down our own ideas and practicing lessons and creating our own lesson plans. That summer, I had just adopted a young kitten that we named Petunia, and one of my journaling ideas that summer was writing about Chewy and Petunia, how they were interacting. Chewy was our older cat, and they didn't quite get along at first. And that kind of developed into the idea to turn it into a narrative about their adventures at home and how they got along and learned to share the house. So that turned into Brat Cat. And yeah, so it was just kind of turned into one of those things that came very naturally and has just been so much fun sharing with my students. I ended up adding the illustrations, and a few years later, it just became a whole thing on its own.
So tell me about the process of having Brat Cat published. Were you surprised that happened?
I was. I was a little underconfident to try to self-publish. So I had the entire book done, the words, the pictures. I put the entire book together, and I sent it off to a couple different publishers, which was a little tricky because the larger publishers do not accept unsolicited manuscripts. So I had to find smaller publishers, and I didn't expect anything to come out of it. But a small publisher down in North Carolina called Peak City Publishing did pick up the first book, Brat Cat, and published it on my behalf. And it was just so exciting because I went in not having any hopes, trying not to get my hopes up. So it was, it exceeded my expectations when it did get published.
So as an educator, was there always sort of in the back of your mind that you wanted to write at some point? You wanted that to be part of your life, publishing?
Well, again, one of the things I love about teaching first grade are all the wonderful books that I get to work with, seeing the children develop a love of reading, taking them to the library and seeing what books they choose. So in the back of my mind, it had always been something that I thought would be really wonderful to write and publish my own children's book. But I never actually expected for it to come to fruition. So again, it really has been a dream of mine to make it come true.
That's wonderful. So before you wrote Brat Cat and you're presenting in front of your students, did you often find yourself talking about Chewy and Petunia as ways to kind of get them excited about whatever you might have been teaching them?
Absolutely. I always encourage my students to find ideas to write about from their own lives. I always tell them the best topic to write about is one that you know about firsthand. And so it was really great to be able to demonstrate that to my students because I did the same thing. I wrote about Brat Cat, my two cats meeting for the first time and not getting along, and being able to show that to my students. They get so excited seeing that I'm a published author, and it really does inspire them, and they end up writing about their own pets at home or other adventures that they have with their families.
Now, the dynamic between the two characters in Brat Cat, the original story, must have been really resonant to a lot of kids, I would imagine, because it's that whole new sibling being introduced dynamic. Is that what you thought about as you were writing this?
Absolutely. It really translates nicely to a new baby coming home with an older sibling. The same idea. It really also translates to just sharing things in general. And the students seem to really be able to, they really seem to relate to the book and to the characters. And they just love seeing the cats talk in the book. They love making the sounds in the book that, the cats make. So it's been a lot of fun.
Talk to me a little bit about the way you illustrated Brat Cat. You're a visual artist to begin with? Is that?
Well, I've always had a creative side to me. I grew up playing instruments. I was always in band and took piano lessons. I also always enjoyed art. All my electives in high school and college always ended up being related to music and art. And I took a lot of hands-on art courses, drawing, painting. I never did anything with it professionally, though, until I started illustrating for Brat Cat. And the medium that I chose ended up being a lot of paper, as you can see here. I used a lot of cut paper from scrapbooking, construction paper. So it's really been an interesting journey for me, discovering myself as a little bit more of a professional artist, not just taking classes in high school and college.
Yeah, this is a unique way. It seems unique to me. Had you seen this modeled in another book? Because I know you're so familiar with children's literature. This sort of, what would you call this method?
Kind of a collage style.
Yes, collage style. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Had you seen that before?
One of the most famous children's authors that comes to mind is A.R. Carl.
Oh, of course.
I've always loved his
Right.
books, and those books are so relatable for young children.
So what directions did you take these two characters in after Brat Cat, the original? Because I love the way it ends, that, Chewie sees the benefit of having a partner, to hang out with. What did you do going forward with these characters?
Right. Well, like I mentioned before, I try to stick to being inspired from the antics at home that happen every day.
Right.
So I can keep showing my children at school how I use inspiration from home. So my second book ended up being Brat Cat Gets Lost. And this one is based on a true story when Petunia, just very curious, she ended up climbing up into the drop ceiling down in our basement. And we couldn't find her for a few hours, and we heard her meowing, and we finally found her, and my husband, Tim, pulled down a ceiling tile and pulled her out of the ceiling.
Oh, gosh.
So that's what this story is based on. And the kids just love hearing that Petunia really did kind of get lost in the house. It's really funny. So after that, I ended up making Brat Cat Seasons, and this one is a little bit more nonfiction based, has an overview of the different seasons, and uses the five senses to explore the different seasons. So it's really great for young children to relate to the different seasons and what they do. For example, in the summertime, tasting ice cream, smelling the flowers. And this was kind of inspired by the way I always see, the cats are always sitting at the window. So here you can see it's the view of the cats looking out, so that inspired me.
Right, it's a little bit of a different audience there.
Right, exactly.
So as now a published author, do you think about writing more, writing differently, perhaps writing for older kids?
Absolutely. I'm very much a thinker, and I think on things for quite a long time before I start working on them. For example, right now I'm home with my 3-month-old daughter, and my next book that I already began the illustrations for and the narrative for is going to be loosely based on Brat Cat and the baby. The way the cats have treated my daughter Violet since she's been home with us. So that's what I'm working on now, but I'm also really interested
that displacement dynamic sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost a throwback to the first story.
Yeah.
Another new being in the house.
Right, right, who needs so much attention and focus.
Exactly. But it's also something that I think about often, what other characters could I write about? What other new story could I bring to the table that aren't related to the cats? So that's something that I've been thinking about as well.
It must be very exciting to know that you have this, once you've published, you have that rapport with a publisher, that there's even more possibilities for what you might, bring to the market. Is part of what you're thinking ever like an animated program based on your cats?
Well, I've been told very often that Brat Cat seems like it could be an animated cartoon because they have such personalities, and that's what I really love bringing to the books, is really trying to show their personalities through the storytelling. And I've been told often that it could really be a cartoon. I'm very lucky because my husband is a musician, and he's written a song to go along with each book, and he's so creative in the way he writes and plays songs. He plays the songs for children at different events that I do, and they walk away singing the song out loud. And
That's
it's
always a
so
good sign.
yeah, it's really wonderful to see that.
That's great. So as a teacher, what is it about this idea of being able to write your own story that is so powerful, and that was so important to you, that led you to create this series?
Well, part of it for young children is building their confidence. As in everything they do, when they come upon something brand new, some children are ready to jump right in and tackle it, and others are a little bit more apprehensive. And so for those more apprehensive children, it's really important to show them that any kind of writing that they do is wonderful, is a great first step in becoming a successful student and a successful writer. In first grade, they're just learning how to read, just learning how to write, and we want to encourage that love of learning, and part of that is encouraging loving writing, because through school, writing is such a major, major part of being a student.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you had, or at least I had read about you, that you thought that they perhaps weren't engaging as quickly and as compelling, or they weren't compelled to write, but you found this helped? The fact that you became a writer?
Absolutely. When I bring my books into the classroom, it really shows the children, their teacher did it, so I can do it too. So many times as a teacher, it can be very easy to find yourself telling the students what to do rather than showing them what to do. Showing them what to do really makes it, really opens up the possibilities for the children. It's so important to always be writing in front of them, not just saying, we're going to write a story today, but show them that you are in the process of writing your own story, or you have written your own story, and that really encourages them.
That's excellent. Well, Jennifer Ann Hoh, thank you so much for being with us. Next up, Jackson Taylor and the Power of Writing.